Over to you, Phil.
Right, I'll try not to throw my bits around, which I just did. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah,
Lovely.
Okay. I've locked, or I've tried to lock the focus on the camera, so hopefully the fly stays in focus, unlike last time. So I'm going to kick off. I mean, as though,
camera.
eh?
We can only see you. We can't see the flies, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Bear with me.
No, I'm saying you're not bad
Good
looking,
start.
right? There you
No,
go.
let's face it, no one wants to see me, do they?
there we go.
Hey.
There we go. Right. So, as those of you that have seen me before, seen me tie before, know I tie predominantly stillwater flies. Some of these can be used on the rivers. This is one of them. And in my first demo for you guys, I tied Higa's SOS, which is a black nymph with a silver bead. But Higa also did an Olive SOS that I thought I'd show you because I've been tying this up for myself for the still waters, and some people who are silly enough to buy flies off me use it on the rivers, and it's proved relatively successful. So I thought I'd show it to you. So in the vise, we've got just a standard scud hook in size 12. This one happens to be barbless, but whatever you prefer. And I've got a 3.2 mil orange brass bead, tungsten if you want. You know, all it does is change the sink rate. And what we're going to do, you'd olive thread for this one. So the body is made from the thread. So let me get that into my bobbin holder. Zoom started to update just as I tried to join the meeting, so I was a bit behind. There we go. And we're going to catch the thread on, obviously. Go down a ways. Get rid of the tag end. Got some new scissors, so I'm just trying out some new scissors today. So if it all goes wrong, I am definitely blaming the scissors.
What type are they, Phil?
Hey?
What type are they?
The Fly Smith.
Oh.
I won them. They're slightly curved. I don't know if you can see that. I won them from Uphaven in a competition, and they turned up this week. So I thought I'll give them a stab. Probably give myself a stab as well. Right. The tail is natural cock pheasant tail. My wife is chuckling because I use the word cock. And I like tails shorter than is the norm. You know, people say tail length should be the length of the body. I like it a bit shorter. So I'm going to offer it up, as you can see there, and then effectively just pinch and loop. Catch it on, make sure I'm happy, make sure it's sitting right. And then take the thread back up to the top.
So a nice bit of stiff cocktail.
Hey?
I said a nice bit of stiff material.
Exactly, yeah. You can't beat a bit of stiff cock. Right, rib next.
The bloke you're talking to, that's lost on them.
You said I was young. I'm starting to blush. Stop being rude. Right, the rib is silver wire. I'm just going to stick it into the bead to keep it in the right place. Catch it on here. And then I want that to stay on my side of the hook all the way down. Okay, and now we're going, that's right, don't we? We're going back up. We're just going to create a little bit of a taper. I'm not sure this makes too much difference. I fished it with and without taper and had success with both. So this is probably just for our benefit more than anything else. But kind of when you're happy with the body, we're going to rib the fly. And I would say three or four. There we go. and then helicopter it off. And that's the body done. And to be fair, you could probably dub a thorax on that and leave it be, but Spencer Heger didn't do that. He ties in a thorax cover. I am using orange hollow tinsel to match the color of the bead. The original black SOS and actually the original natural SOS calls for red, and it calls for red floss as well, but I'm not a massive fan of floss, and I figured we should have a color that matched the bead, so we're going orange. Get rid of that. Next up is the wings, and I'm using Crystal Flashing Black. I think the original called for pearl, but I like the black. We're just going to cut a strand, double it over, and catch it in. And effectively then just spin it 90 degrees. I just want to catch it in to make sure they don't go anywhere. Well, that will do. Okay, we need dubbing. Bear with me. And I am using Vicuna dubbing in Olive Midge, which seems to have worked really well for me. I've tried a few different colours. This one is a fairly pale olive. It's almost like a watery olive, really. And it seems to have, compared to the medium olive, it seems to have increased my catch rate a bit. But you want quite a bulbous thorax on this. So I'm going to dub that on. Those wings are really annoying. Should have tied those in last. A little bit more. You know when you say a little bit more and then pull a massive clump off the patch? That's what I just did. Okay. Right. Just going to make sure that those wings are in the right position. I'm going to bring the thorax cover over the top. No, I'm not. I'm going to cut the wings first because they're in the way. So the wings in line with the back of the hook. Just going to snip those. Then the thorax cover.
Got loads of trigger points on it.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but maybe it is what it is. I found orange has really worked recently for me for brown trout, less so for rainbows, but the browns seem to have gone bonkers. I fished certainly in the Clearwater venues. I've been lucky enough to fish Manningford recently, and not since it reopened after changing hands, but pretty close to when it shut. And I got down to Abington recently as well. And both of those, the browns went ballistic for orange. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit, take most of what I put on there off, just behind the bead. Just, it pushes those wings back a bit. Sit them in, sit them in a better position. And then just whip finish.
Bill, the water you're fishing, do they have a lot of other fish in there, like coarse fish and that, do they?
I don't think Manningford did. I mean, I've used this on the Midlands reservoirs as well, and they, yeah, very much so. They do.
I was just wondering the orange, whether it imitated an egg, perhaps.
Possibly. But that's, you can see the wings, they're a touch long. I'd probably trim those, but you've got the thorax cover, the bead, and then a very natural olive body in the tail. And for whatever reason, it seems to work on the rivers and on the still waters. So that is Heger's Heger's Olive SOS.
Any idea why he called it the SOS?
He when he invented the original, which was black, I think SOS stands for Save Our Session, and it was, he was having a shocking day guiding, threw this one on, and his clients cleaned up, and I think he's experimented with different color combinations and always went back to the black and the natural. His natural has a gold bead, which apparently made a massive difference where he fishes to the catch rate, but he's I'm going to say Utah, somewhere like that in the States. So very different to what we do. But yeah, I think it's something like Save Our Session or something like that. It was a last resort, and it saved his guided session. His customers caught a ton.
Crazy.
Right, next up. Okay, so I've spoken about Abington. Let me tie you a fly that caught me two other browns, two big browns in successive casts. So it's a great little. I mean, basically, it's a flashback pheasant tail nymph with a couple of differences. I've been tying flashback pheasant tails, as I'm sure you guys have, for a while. And then I saw a video from Phil Rowley, who's in the States, that I incorporated what he does into it. And I also took inspiration from my colleagues on the Togans Pro team, and sort of tied it in their chironomid style. So just let me fart around with this bead, and then I'll get going. I'll find the hole. There we go. Right. So what I've got is, this is a curved nymph hook. This one's from Togan's Fly Shop, and it's size 16. Now these are 2 times long, so it looks a bit bigger than a 16, but it's a 16, and I've paired that up with a Brown Magic 2.4 mil tungsten bead, and these are, I love this color. It's like a matte brown, but just with a tiny bit of metallic through it. And it's really sort of earthy. But what I've done that's a bit out of the ordinary, that's where the inspiration from my Togan's colleagues comes, is I've put the bead on backwards. So the countersunk hole is at the front and it's sitting over the eye. You can see it just sits a little bit further forwards. So then you'd normally put the small hole on first. The small hole here is at the back. The countersunk hole is at the front. And the reason I do that is because this fly has breathers, and the only way I can get the bead over the breathers once I've tied them in is putting the countersunk hole on first. So white thread is a must. I suppose you could use brown actually to match the colour of the bead, but I'm using white. And we're just going to catch it. And we're going to push the bead to the back of the hook and then catch your thread on. Just 2 or 3 wraps will be enough. For the breathers, I'm using this stuff, Uni Stretch Floss in white. I'd never used it until I saw my guys on the Togans team tying their chironomids, and now I can't get enough of it. It's good for adding bulk onto bodies. It's good for breathers. I really like it. So I've cut a strand, and then I'm going to double that over, and then just tie it on the top. You want to go all the way up to the eye, and then you want to lift it up, much like you do with CDC and emergers and things, just to kick those breathers up a bit. And then what we're going to do is trim the stuff at the back off. Not like that. There we go. Tidy it up. And whip finish. Snip the thread. And then I'm going to bring the bead forwards, and as you can see, it slots straight over those breathers so that they stick out the front of the bead. You can now choose the colour of thread. I use white thread to blend in with the breathers because it's in my bobbin holder. I'm going to keep going. So we'll catch the thread on again. This fly benefits from a taper, so I'm just going to work up and down a little bit. This is where you need your lift music just whilst you build a taper, isn't it? Right. So, in the spirit of what we use last goes in first. I'm going to tie the ribbon first, which is gold wire.
Have you tried those fluorescent threads as a rib yet, Phil?
Yeah, I love them. I like using them with like squirrel and hare's ear because they sort of bed into the natural material and then just pop when you need them to, don't they?
Yeah, pop straight out, doesn't it?
They are lovely. And I've used the orange one in a dial back pattern, which is really good as well.
If you need more, give me a shout.
I will. I think I'll be using those for the rest of my life, to be honest, but I will let you know if I run out. Okay, next in is going to be the body, which is male pheasant tail again. So I take a good pinch, probably 10 or 12 of these, and doing the standard pull 90 degrees. I'm just going to catch them in at the base. We'll cover those up. This is a morsel for the trout, this. And before I go back down, I'm using green holographic, not chartreuse. This is like forest green as the flashback. What you want to do is get this on top of the hook shank and make sure it stays on top of the hook shank. It needs to be straight down the back. So I'm just looking down on top of it now, make sure I've got that in the right position. Right, and then back up. Doesn't need to be touching turns. I'm going to do a quick whip finish to save my work. And now, pheasant tail body time. I just like to snip the curlies off on the ends. It helps the fibres spread out a bit and just gives you a bit more of an even coverage. There we go. Just gonna, there we go. There we go. Tie that off. If you're brave enough, you can break away the pheasant tail, but I am absolutely not. So I'll use the scissors. Tie off the ends, not too much. Right. Green flashback next. Twist it slightly, and that wants to be straight up the back. And I like to do a couple of wraps because we're going to rib it now, and obviously thread tension is going to try and push that flashback over away from me and towards you. So I like to keep a couple of loose wraps, and then I can adjust the rib if I need to. I do a couple of wraps on the bare hook shank just to butt up against the pheasant tail, and then it's just a question of ribbing your fly. And I like to put the rib in and then pull down or pull up. It's already going around. Okay. And catch that in as well. Helicopter away your wire. Or not. And then snip away your flashback. And then thorax, I'm using dark drake this time. So another olivey colour, but this is a really almost a muddy olive. It's really nice for this fly. And I'm only using that because that's what worked for me at Abington. Okay, now a quick whip finish. Trim the breathers. Now, what you do not want to do when you're trimming stretch floss is pull them tight and then trim it, because it bounces back and it'll be short. So leave it as it is and then trim where you want it. And that, as you can see, the green up the back, basically a flashback pheasant tail nymph, but it works really, really well for me at Abington. I had a 6 pound 2 brown, and then I had a 7.5 pound brown in successive casts, both on this fly. And then, I mean, they obliterated it. Their teeth absolutely murdered this. There was green tinsel everywhere. Pheasant tail was broken, and I saw a rainbow in the margins and plonked this on its nose, and it had it pretty much straight away. So it works really well, and the tungsten bead got it down quickly in the flow of the water, which was good as well. So very much recommend this one, and I like the shape that the curved nymph hook gives it. Just suits my eye a bit better. I'm not sure the fish really care, but there you have it.
Tidy.
Right. Onwards and upwards. Let's do a mate of mine's damsel. It wouldn't be one of my demonstrations without some sort of damsel fly nymph. So let's do that. I have a mate in the States called Rob Snow White. He's a guide in Washington, D.C., and he invented this fly, and it's worked very well for me over here. He apparently keeps a list of where's my thread? All of the species of trout he's caught on this, and I think the list is up to about 30 at the moment. So it certainly works. Not all the species of trout, sorry, all the species of fish. I don't think there are 30 species of trout. So his calls for a red thread, so that's what I'm putting on. And there's very few materials on this. It's not complicated. And it works really well. Right. So hooks, scud size 10. So it's a bit of a mouthful, this one. Designed. It works really well early season over here, because certainly where I've fished, the early season damsels are a lot brighter green than later in the season.
That's what Bry was catching on yesterday.
Is it?
Yeah, damsel.
Whereabouts? Which lake?
Delbury Hall, Diddlebury.
Yeah. Which lake at Delbury?
The garden one, the top one.
Oh, okay.
And then he went down to the bottom one and he caught a few more.
Well, that's not okay, is it? Bless you. Right. Thread on. Bead chain eyes. These are big. These are designed to get the fly down, which is why I've gone oversized on the bead chain eyes. If you don't want it sinking quite as quick, then just use bead chain eyes that are a bit more in proportion to the hook. I tend not to worry if my eyes spin a bit. It just there you go. Right. Tail flash. I'm using this stuff, which is something called Kironi skin in rainbow. Really nice stuff. Loads of movement to it as well. Rob's original calls for crystal flash, but that's stiffer and doesn't have the movement that this does. So I'm just going to tie in a few of these. It's a bit of a swine to work with them. Right, so I'll tie a few of those in. Just going to double it over just to make sure it doesn't pull undone, because it's a mylar, so it's slippery stuff. Right, the rest of the fly, ostrich. This is in, I think this is insect green ostrich. We'll just rip the bag. And if you can get the jumbo stuff, it works much better. This is just the normal size stuff, but it will be fine. 5 strands of ostrich for the tail. 1, 2, 3, 5. There we go. Oh, I need to cut the tail flash to length first. And you want the tail flash to be about, I don't know, a shank and a half, a bit more maybe. So we'll go there. Get your ostrich, make sure the tips are all aligned. And you want that just a bit longer. I like it just a bit longer than that tail flash, if I'm honest. Tied in behind the bead. And then double that over. And we wrap down basically as far as you want, the length of the body. Probably there. Yep, that'll do. Take the thread back up. And then we're going to wrap back up with the ostrich in touching turns. Just going to secure that with a couple of wraps behind the eyes, and then put the thread in front of the eyes. And then we're just going to go around the eyes, figure of 8 around the eyes with the ostrich. Tie it off behind the eyes again. Snip off your excess. And then I like to whip finish it in front of the eye. I'll do a couple because I just want to make that secure. Here we go. But that's it. That's Rob's Damsel. Nice, easy, quick to crank out. Works really well early season because of the brighter colours. It's not as dull as the later season Damsels where I am, but yeah. And Rob had this fly featured on Tightline Productions by Tim. Is it Tim Flagler?
Yeah.
And I guess you know you've made it when Tim does one of your flies, right? But I like that it's easy, it's quick, you can, not many materials, you can crank out loads in a short space of time should you want to.
Interesting using the ostrich instead of marabou.
Yeah, and it swims. Obviously, it's going to swim differently. I like how it swims. It just offers something the fish probably haven't seen. There's still loads of movement in the ostrich. The tail's a bit stiffer, but certainly the fuzzy stuff in the body has got as much movement as if you used a marabou body. But you can mix up the colours. It's one of those flies that you could, if you wanted to, you could tie in bulk pretty quickly. And I know Rob does that. He's got an Etsy store and he guides a lot, so he needs to tie a lot of these in double quick time. But this fly has worked really well for me. Yeah, and again, I scale the bead chain eyes depending on how quickly I want it to sink. Right. Okay, I'll do a nymph and a buzzer here. I don't know if any of you saw the article in Fly Fishing and Fly Tying ages ago, but there was a fly featured called the Buckshot nymph. And I thought that looks interesting, so I gave it a go and it worked really well. I then developed that into a buzzer. So what I'll do is I'll show you the Buckshot nymph, the original pattern that I can take no credit for whatsoever. I can't remember the guy that tied it. And then I'll show you the Buckshot buzzer, which I probably can't take credit for either, but I've not seen anybody else tie that one. So what we need is a jig hook in size 16, and we're back on the Brown Magic, but this time they're slotted tungsten beads because we've got the jig. And these are 2.8 to go with the size 16 jig. So just let me stab myself several times whilst I get the...
Did you get those Brown Magic beads in the UK, Phil?
No, I didn't. I got them from Togan's Fly Shop, who are now based in America, but they've done a deal with a postage company, so the postage rates over here are reasonable now, whereas I know previously they possibly were a bit inhibitive. So absolutely have a look at Togan's website. It's got the anti-static bag on there that I raved about last time I tied as well. So they've got some interesting things. And I guess if a few of you club together, postage rates become reasonable. Okay, body, glow bright, number 9. And then the, ooh, what's supposed to happen? There's only really one more material after that. So I'm just going to, looks a bit weird. Let's see, so just going to sticking a thread down to keep the bead where it needs to be. Okay. I'll need a taper on this as well. Right. So that's it. A distinctive carrot shape on this one is required. And then we go all the way down. Just finish right where the bend of that hook starts. flatten floss again and come back. I'm going to stop there where the thorax would normally, or where the thorax does start, and I'm going to get some pearl crystal flash. Just one strand. Tie that in. Snip off your excess. These scissors are good for detailed work. I like them. And then we're going to pull that tight, that pearl crystal flash, and wrap it up. And what it's done is basically all it's done is get rid of the kinks in it. To form the thorax. Two. One more. Snip off your excess. Try not to snip the bead. And then whip finish. And that now requires a coat of UV resin, which has been warming nicely. And I like to put that resin right up into the bead so it goes into the slot of the bead just to secure it all onto the hook. Okay. Zap with the torch. And you can see the colour it goes under the UV. And that's it. That's the buckshot nymph. As I say, size 16. It was tied for still waters. It wasn't tied for rivers. It works really well for me. Certainly, it's worked well in the summer when fish are really lethargic. I just stick it a long tippet, whack it out there, and let it sink, and really retrieve it slowly, almost along the bed of the lake. It's also worked well early season. At the reservoirs, I sometimes use it as a point fly with some buzzers above it. The size 16 I think helps. It's something small, but it has worked really well. And the thorax just gives you that bit of bling when the sun hits off it with that straightened out pearl crystal flash. So that's the buckshot nymph. And then that got me thinking, we're talking about teams of buzzers, straight lining, whatever, how I could work that into a buzzer pattern. So what I have here is a 3 times heavy scud hook in size 12. We're going on with the Globite number 9 again. Get rid of the excess. It's the trouble with floss, it frays, doesn't it, when you do something stupid with his scissors. Right, some more crystal flash. So we're tying in the crystal flash as the rib this time. So we're just going to put it tight, work our way down. There we go. Snip off a bit sticking out the front. And then going to whip finish. Get rid of the glow bright. And grab, without trashing the kitchen, black thread. Right. Catch your black thread on. And we're going to rib with the pearl crystal flash. What that first rib, it's a bit tricky, it's slippery stuff. Well, once you've got it. So, okay, and I guess I'm doing probably 5 turns here. If you want them closer together, that's fine. If you prefer your buzzer ribs further apart, that's fine. You know, I'm a big advocate of having confidence in the fly you're fishing, as opposed to being prescriptive about how many turns of rib you need. So I've done that. Snip that off. And now really, it's a question of building the thorax, which I want to be about there, I reckon. And tying in some cheeks. And for the cheeks, I've got this stuff, Vivus I-22, which doesn't help at all, but you can see it's white thread with some sparkle through it, and it's really nice. I got this, it shows you how long ago I got this. I got this from the London Fly Fishing Fair, which last happened in 2019. It's a bit like microglint, really, but just not as thick. So just cut a strand of it, and I like to wrap it around the thread. At least I like to try and wrap it around the thread. How does David McFadden do it? There we go, that's it. Looks like a brain fart. Make sure you've covered it all underneath. Again, fish probably don't care, but it bothers me. And then just build the thorax to the size you like your buzzer thoraxes. Again, I'm not prescriptive. And then it's just a case of bringing your 2 strands forwards and open over the front. There we go. Couple in front, couple behind. snip off these bits as close as you dare. Ooh, those new scissors, good. Oh, really close.
That's where I cut the thread.
Yeah, well, I normally do, but these scissors, they must be magic. But that went really, really close. And then get rid of it. So you've got your cheeks, you've got the pearl rib, coat of UV, and that is the Buckshot buzzer, which I probably can't take credit for either, but that's worked really well for me. To be fair, it's worked better than the Buckshot nymph. Maybe I'm more confident fishing buzzers, certainly on those big Midlands reservoirs I am, which has helped. But I do it in size 8 when I'm straight lining to get them down, straighten the leader out. But I've got the sort of size 14, size 16 on the top dropper as well. And when they're in that top 3 feet of water and there's a bit of brightness in the sky and the sun hits the rib, the trout go mental for them. So I can highly recommend that one. And yellows always seem to be a colour that's worked for me. Certainly on Draycote before it shut, yellow was a winner for buzzers. But the other, it works equally well on the other ones as well.
Do you coat the thorax with resin?
I'll do the whole fly with resin, or usually 3 coats of varnish on my buzzers. I tend not to use resin on buzzers. I'm not too sure why, but yes, because the floss, one trout and the floss will have had it otherwise.
Yeah.
But whatever you normally treat your buzzers with, just use that.
I use Sally Hansen's.
Yeah, that's what I've got. 3 coats of that, and that will see you through multiple fish, won't it?
Magic.
Okay.
Anybody got any questions for Phil at this point?
No, you got any recommendations for what's the one up from Pittsford?
To be honest, any of these would work at Pittsford. I've not fished Pittsford. It's on the list for this year. I know that people have tremendous success with humongous, both gold and silver at Pittsford. Certainly the big browns there.
What about Rutland?
Rutland, the last time I fished Rutland was years ago, but I would be fishing buzzers. Certainly at this time of year, all the way through towards the end of May, I'd be on the buzzers and then looking at Bob's Bits, shuttlecock emergers as well. Have worked very well for me there. Same on Grapham. It's such a heavy buzzer hatch, or it has been, that any buzzer emerging buzzer, or Bob's Bits style dry will work. It's more size and color, but if the fish are switched onto them, the fish, they go bonkers. But then I fished along the dam wall with a Pittsford P early season, and that's worked very well. That Rob Snow White Damsel I tied with the ostrich would work very well. Certainly the big bead chain eyes give it a massive lift and drop type movement. And I know that the competition boys love a good die 7 with a booby, sort of trolling the depths. So I don't have a die 7, so I can't do that if I wanted to.
Okay.
Right. I've got one more for you tonight. And I've called it the Flybox Cat. It's a variation on a cat's whisker. For those of you that saw it a couple of years ago, Flybox, the materials company, I think based in Scotland, said if you want a free fly tying, but sort of here's a pattern, we'll send out the materials for free, just pay postage. So I said yes, please. And this is what they sent out, and actually it's been really, really effective. So I can highly recommend tying some of these. As I say, it's a variation. It's not quite a cat's whisker, but it's not far off. So I've got a size 12 wet fly hook in the vise, and I have a 2.8 mil brass fluorescent yellow bead on, and thread needs to be, well, it doesn't need to be white. I tie it with white thread. If you don't, you could tie it with black thread. And what would happen is when the body got wet, the black thread would show through. It would just be a bit dirtier, which, you know, necessarily no bad thing. It just depends what you're looking for, I guess. But I like mine with white thread. Right. So I'm going to tie the thread on. I'm going to put down a base just because it's good practice, but it doesn't need to be particularly neat. And then we're going back up towards the bead. Tail, marabou in white. And you want to pinch an inch, maybe a bit more than an inch. Depends on the quality of the marabou, I guess. So I'm just going to take it 90 degrees from the stem. And I'm going to snip off the curlies that have come off with it, and then get rid of all the fuzz at the end of the marabou, just to reduce bulk a little bit. I'm going to tie that in behind the bead. Now I'm sure I told you this last time, I tie all my marabou tails in behind the bead and then work my way down. It allows me to make sure the marabou stays bang on top of the hook shank, because you can make sure the thread wraps don't twist it, and if you lift it up slightly, it accentuates that, and also gives you a nice even underbody, which I like. And I've gone down to just opposite the barb, at which point I'm going to do a couple of wraps underneath in a vain attempt to reduce or minimize the spinning when you're casting. And I'm just going to snip off those bits because that will be unsightly. And then adjust the length. And this is, I mean, size 12 hook, so you don't want a long tail. I'm probably going to go there. It is very much a micro lure, really. Rib is going to be that opal mirage. You can use any type of pearl mylar you like.
Yeah, but that mirage is nice stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a bit of bling to that, isn't there? It's going to be very much going to be a trigger point. And I mean, kudos to Flybox. When they sent the kit through, they didn't send a spool of mylar. They'd cut 6 10-centimeter strands for each person that wanted the kit, and then put them in a bag along with 6 beads, 6 hooks, 6 marabou feathers. They did a good job on it. So I tied that down my side. I'm just going to catch that into the materials clip to get it out of the way. And the body, fluorescent chartreuse dubbing. So it is a really in your face. And the body-wise, it's entirely up to you. You can have it thin and straight, you can have it fat, you can have it carrot shaped. I'm not convinced it makes a blind bit of difference. The shape, the trout take this aggressively as they do the cat's whisker for the same reason, and it's not because of the shape of the body particularly. But what you do need to do, and this is critical in my opinion, is make sure you do a nice even dubbed body, because the mylar is so slippery. If you have any lumps and bumps, you can guarantee the mylar will find that lump or bump or hollow or valley and slip into it when you're trying to rib the fly. And I hate ribs that aren't uniform. I mean, if you don't care, then that's fine. I'm a bit OCD about all that. And mylar is just so slippery that it'll find any imperfection in a body. So once that's dubbed on, we're going to come up with the rib. There's a bump there. That's not too bad, actually. A nice tight turn behind the bead. There we go. It's perfect. Snip off the mylar. Right. If you want to, you can give it a rough up here. It's your call. But the final piece of this fly, and they sent 6 of these as well, is a jungle cock fillet. And I'm not talking a jungle cock eye, I'm talking one of these. They're spectacular. They're the ones from right at the top of the cape. And I've run out, so if anybody's got any that they don't want, I'll happily take them off your hands. But they're really webby. I've used them on various pheasant tail nymphs, hare's ears. They just make the most spectacular hackle. So we're going to catch that in by the tip and use it as a hackle on this fly. So I'm just going to do the usual, catch it on the hacker pliers, draw it back. One thing you will need is to wax the thread, just to give it a bit of grip so this doesn't slip out. Catch that on my side, shorten that up a bit. There we go, got it. Right. 3 or 4 turns. And then it's just a question of hackling. And I like to wet my fingers and draw the hackle back before I do this, just so that you minimize the number of fibers going forwards, and also you're laying the rachis, the center of that feather, down the gap behind the bead, as opposed to feather fibers, and it sits a bit better. Again, I'm not convinced the fish give a monkeys, but it suits my eye better and it makes for a neater fly, and I'm going to fish a neater fly with more confidence. And when I don't want to over hackle this, so when you think you've done enough, well, I think I have, just tie it off. Couple behind, couple in front, couple behind again. And then it's just a question of getting rid of that feather. Now I'm sure I'm teaching people old dogs new tricks and all that here. I don't snip hackle feathers. I get my scissors, let's bring that down, in a tiny V, rest it on the bead, and then I just push the scissors, and it breaks, or the sharpness of the scissors cuts the center of the feather without actually snipping away any of the hackle fibers that are on there. A couple of wraps of thread just to secure that down. If you feel the need, you can add a tiny bit more dubbing so that the hackle cloaks the fly, if that's what you want. And then it's just a question of whip finishing. Snipping off your excess, but that is the fly box cat, and it is absolutely deadly. The takes are savage as well. They really are. For me, they have been really hard takes on that. So I thoroughly recommend using that jungle cock as hackling on anything. Frankly, I really like how it sits.
Very nice.
And that's it.
Tidy.
Thank you, Phil.
Pleasure. Happy to take any questions, or if you all want to nick off and have a beer, I'm happy with that as well.
They're all on mute, so
I'll run away quick, shall I?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Anybody
just
got any questions?
very quickly, Phil. Many years ago, I got some jungle cock from McCarty's, who selected just that bit.
Yeah.
So in other words, without the eyes,
Okay.
and they must have sent me, I don't know, 20 odd things for about £2.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, just paid me. I basically just paid postage. But it has to be somebody that sells jungle cocks that gets them in bulk and is able to sort them out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's very difficult to find.
Yeah, and I've been looking on eBay for somebody selling a scabby old cape that they think has got value and hasn't. But they're still going for, even the ones that have, had all the decent eyes used. They're still going for 15 or 20 quid, and I'm not that desperate, that desperate for them.
Yeah.
But the feathers are fabulous to hackle with. They sit so nicely, and the black and white just creates a really nice contrast because it's white, black, and white.
Yeah, it's not. It's not like the elver feathers. It's not that blue color. It is actually black and white, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got a white tip, black middle, and then a white coming off the stem. So a little bit like a zebra.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. And really easy to hackle with. You don't have to overwork them. They sit really well. I mean, you saw there, it was just a couple of turns and it looked like a full hackle already. They are really good.
Thank you very much indeed, Phil. I know that you can hear me.
I can, Mike. Yeah, no, pleasure.
Thank you. Very enjoyable. Thanks, Derek.
One quick question, Phil, if I may.
Go for it.
Right. If you can't get jungle cock, is there any alternative you could use?
If you want disturbance, then you could sort of grizzle cock. If you wanted movement, then I'd be looking at partridge or maybe hen.
Rightio. Lovely. Might have a go at some of them. Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, the sits a bit differently. This is slightly stiffer than it's almost hennycock. It's stiffer than partridge and hen, and much softer than standard cock. But the partridge will give you that movement and that cloaking effect, whereas you want the cock hackle sitting proud because it's stiff and that creates disturbance in the water.
Lovely, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks very much, Phil. Really good. Enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Excellent night. Thank you.
Good. I've got my focus on the camera sorted out this time as well, so it's all good.